Okay, we've had a great afternoon so far, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our next speaker. Fights on, Forging Cyber War Fighting Excellence. So we've got Colonel Jamel Neville, Commander of the Marine Corps Cyberspace Warfare Group. Sir?
Thanks, appreciate it. So I was chatting with Chris here, and I think this is the largest Marine presence I think we've had on these HammerCon events to date. So pretty excited. I may be the first Marine speaker, maybe, but I know General Reynolds is in the afternoon. So, but anyways, thanks for having me. Winning together, wow, winning together, innovation, inspiration, and initiative. I think the theme is very fitting. I do have two colleagues with me. So in the background, I have, or in the back, Sergeant Major Colling, my senior enlisted advisor. So wave your hand, Aaron. And then Chief Warrant Officer, there you go. And Chief Warrant Officer 5, Chris McAllister, wave your hand, kind sir. All right. That gentleman right there is the senior most Marine defensive cyberspace weapons officer. So we're standing amongst greatness. We're sitting amongst greatness. And we're, of course, everybody here, welcome. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank Joe Billingsley, who's running around, and Chris Cleary for the invitation to speak today, and for developing the HammerCon conferences where warfighters, technologists, and thought leaders come together to advance our profession. Now, over the past 2 years, I've had the honor and privilege of leading the Marine Corps Cyberspace Warfare Group, an exceptional team of Marines, civilians, and contractors who don't just conduct cyberspace operations, they remain in contact with the adversary 24/7, 365. At McCywick, our mission is clear: to field the nation's premier cyber forces capable of achieving objectives within joint, interagency, intergovernmental, and multinational campaigns and operations. And that's not just a motto, that's our mandate. But what does it really mean to be premier? Does it mean having the latest stack of tools, a readiness dashboard, a compliance score? Being premier means being present, persistent, and relentless. Because make no mistake, the fight is on. So today, I want to spend the next 15 minutes or so to walk you through kind of three parts. First, the role McCywick plays in the current fight. Next, the cyber war fighting platforms and opportunities we leverage to increase our readiness and proficiency. And finally, what leadership, readiness, and excellence looks like in this domain. So let's start with the current environment we're operating in. Now, as the character of warfare continues to evolve, cyberspace is continuously contested, a contested space. Our adversaries aren't planning for future conflict, they're operating now. The intelligence community's 2025 annual threat assessment clearly outlines the PRC's campaign to pre-position access on critical infrastructure for attacks during crisis or conflict, and how Volt Typhoon and Salt Typhoon demonstrate the growing breadth and depth of the PRC's capabilities to compromise U.S. infrastructure. Current DoD strategy mandates that we defend forward, operate as a joint force, and deliver outcomes across the competition continuum. Now, I believe operating in the current environment requires competency, credibility, agility, and most importantly, trust. Not as advantages, but as the baseline. So how do we respond? At the Warfare Group, the mission statement right there on the screen earlier isn't aspirational, it's operational. It defines how we organize, train, and equip the fight. We're not here to manage checklists, but we build, employ, and sustain our nation's most elite cyberspace operators and analysts to address the nation's top national security priorities. Our Cyber Mission Force and Joint Mission Operations Center teams who are also here in the audience conduct OCO, DCO, and assure command and control of key terrain in cyberspace, coupled with generating effects. Our cyber protection teams are maneuver elements, forward-leaning, threat-informed, network-agnostic, and aligned with Fleet Marine Force, Mar Force Cyber, U.S. Cybercom objectives, and other joint and interagency objectives, activities, and investments. So let me ask, who is closing the gaps in cyberspace in real time alongside mission partners? Who is accelerating the decision cycle while remaining aligned to commander's intent. At McSidewick, we know who. It's our world-class Marines and civilians forward deployed, on mission, and in contact with adversaries. Our mindset is clear. It's all about warfighting. That mindset came into sharp focus last year with the deployment of our first cyber rotational force in the Indo-Pacific theater, under the leadership of then Major General Heritage. That deployment wasn't an exercise, it was employment in the weapons engagement zone, alongside our joint and Marine Corps mission partners against real threats. Led by Lieutenant Colonel Nate Goulash and his Marine Corps Cyberspace Operations Battalion, our CRF Marines conducted DCO hunt operations with local defenders, defensive campaign planning, and refined TTPs based on live adversary activity. Now, being forward means bringing capability to bear at the point of friction. And more importantly, it means showing up trained, trusted, and ready to deliver meaningful outcomes. At the Warfare Group, we prioritize readiness of our operators and analysts by delivering superior training, support, and capabilities to enable their success. And that's exactly what the CRF showcased and serves as a model for the future. Meanwhile, our other cyberspace warfare group teammates remain in contact as well. Some are in our war room, watching real-time threat behavior. Some are leading purple teaming efforts, developing, challenging, and refining our tactics through force-on-force simulations and collaborative TTP development. Some are engaged with our Dominion Energy partners, rehearsing responses to real-world threats against operational technology and critical infrastructure, as well as cooperative research and development. Well, what does in contact mean, in cyberspace especially? It's not just monitoring blinking lights, network alerts, or tracking signatures. It's Marines actually maneuvering in contested digital terrain, shaping adversary behavior, building trust with our mission partners, and creating and exploiting information advantages for our Joint Force and Marine Corps Force commanders. That's who we are, that's how we fight, and that's the standard we set. Now that you've got a sense of kind of who we are and how we operate in contact, let's turn to the infrastructure, the partnerships, and exercises that enable us to train and fight. Now, every command and network security operations center has some type of watch floor. Some have this dashboard up there, but does your dashboard move your mission forward, or does it just display the problem? Our war room is where operations, intelligence, readiness, and maneuver all converge. It's not just a dashboard, it's a warfighting platform. And we use it to visualize threat posture, track cyber protection team operations in real time, and assess readiness across the force. As emphasized throughout our Marine Corps information warfighting doctrine, Marines create and exploit information advantages throughout all points of the competition continuum. Said differently, cyber is not just a supporting function, it's maneuver. And our war room reflects that truth. Next, Cyber Fortress, which is Dominion Energy's flagship exercise. It's not a tabletop, it is simulated cyber warfare against the homeland. Dominion Energy's Cyber Fortress event takes place on a destructible cyber range with simulated Chinese attacks on the power grid leading up to a Taiwan invasion scenario. What makes it different? Live OT systems, AI-driven threats, insider sabotage and supply chain compromise, federal, state, and private sector integration. Our cyber forces play roles on both sides, kind of in a purple teaming model. One side is the adversary planning and conducting red team tactics, conducting live fire, and on the other hand, our blue teams partner with and integrate with FBI, DHS, and Dominion Energy's cybersecurity teams. And thanks to our embedded cyber warfare fellows, solid mission partnership with Dominion Energy continues to mature as the warfare group is learning how to locate and counter adversaries upstream on SICR. Moving to our joint force mission partnerships, operations and activities. Operation Grungy Zion last year showcased the Marine Corps' impact in the joint fight. Hosted by the Army Cyber Protection Brigade in the foothills of West Virginia, Grungy Zion brought together the Joint Force Cyber Enterprise, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, National Guard, civilian defenders. Our Marines and civilians didn't just integrate, they led as a joint task group, C2ing forces and conducting TTP adaptation in real time. They were not just co-located, but truly interoperable. Grungy Zion validated the Marine Corps CPTs bring more than just technical skills and expertise. They bring leadership, they bring creativity, they bring maneuver warfare to the table. So we talked about the mission, we talked through how we build and employ the capabilities, but let me close with what matters most: leadership, readiness, and the standard we set for ourselves, our teams, in the current and future fights ahead. Let me reinforce a point here, because often we talk about cyberspace operations, and we tend to forget that the fact that we, especially in the warfare group, are Marines first. That means we bring the same discipline, same expeditionary mindset, and the same warfighting ethos to this domain that we bring to any other. In cyberspace, we don't just detect and defend, we maneuver, impose costs, and enable commanders to take decisive action. In short, warfighting is our business. And because we're Marines first, our cyber forces don't just wait for the perfect information. We bring the same bias for action that our Corps has been renowned for to find and solve hard problems. So as you think about cyberspace readiness and force generation, we ask ourselves, are we building cyber professionals who check boxes? Or are we building Marines, soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardians who bring the standards and ethos from their services and that they're renowned for? Leadership in this domain requires technical literacy and competency, critical thinking, creativity, and trust and accountability. Leaders must set the condition to empower our Marines, civilians, and teammates to excel. As the scope, scale, and sophistication of our adversaries increase in cyberspace, all hands and minds must be on deck, from the junior teammates on keyboard to the senior leaders on the command deck. Cyber Fortress, Grungy Zion, Cyber Rotational Force, these are 3 different missions with one constant: Marines show up ready. Not because we hoped they were, it was because we set the standard and we trained to it. It's a mindset that we cultivate daily. So in closing, what standard will you set? Every leader in this room has influence, but only a few will ask, what fight are we preparing for? What specific problems are we addressing? Are we postured to effectively address them? Are we ready to fight and win? What barriers are holding us back, and how are we fighting through them? What types of cultures and conditions are we setting to empower our people to excel? At MCPA, we're not just theorizing, we're not waiting, we're doing. Shoulder to shoulder with our mission partners, because our commitment to trust, teamwork, and core values drive us forward. That's the team I've had the honor to lead, and that's the standard we set. Thank you, and Semper Fidelis. So talked a lot about our teammates. Hey, Chris McAllister, come on up here, brother. He's like, oh my gosh. So Chris McAllister, as I mentioned before, he is the Senior Defensive Cyberspace Weapons Officer. And I talked about the amazing teammates that I've had a chance to serve alongside to lead over the past 2 years. And so we talked about Grungy Zion, Dominion Energy Cyber Fortress, the CRF. It really, arguably, the brains behind it is standing right here. So I wanted to embarrass him a little bit. Chris, you want to come up, kind sir? We're going to recognize you, Chris, for all your hard work over the past 2 years. He's currently now at Marfor Cyber. He left the battalion, and he's now up there thinking bigger thoughts and doing greater things for the Marine Corps. And so we want to bring General Heritage up, who the CRF really was birthed from and who I got tasked with. He said, Neville, go ahead and go. Roger that, General. But really then it translated to Chris actually executing all the planning and the like. So I thought it was fitting that General Heritage be a part of this. And so,
Please, yeah.
you want me to read it or?
Please, yeah. You got the voice for it.
Okay, great.
And I'll present the medal.
Nice.
Actually, General, why don't you do that?
There we go. All right, so we'll have to do attention to orders. So to all here present, know that Chris McAllister, having been recognized for significant contributions to the community of Marine cyber professionals and having demonstrated our values of loyalty, duty, and excellence, is hereby admitted on this date, June 26, 2025, into the Order of Thor. Signed, Dr. Joe Billingsley and Chris Cleary, President, Military Cyber Professionals Association. I read a lot of awards, so.